Everyone, thank you for joining at 3 o'clock on a Friday. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a Career Pathways Commission Career Connected Education Discovery Meeting for the Student Access Working Group. Here's an agenda for our time today. We're a little behind, but I think that's okay. We're going to do some introductions because not everyone got to meet each other last week, and we'll be getting to know each other very well throughout this entire process. I'll just spend 5 minutes providing an overview of the commission working group structure, the project plan, the purpose of why we're here today. This was all explained last week, but I know people are doing a million things. I think just a refresher would be useful. And then the bulk of what we're doing today is a group discussion that I'll set the stage for. But we're really going to talk through the current state, what's happening now, future state, what we would want to see, and the barriers to getting there as it relates to student access to career pathway programs. So because this is a state meeting, we do have to do a technical roll call. We're going to use this as introductions also. So once we have at least 4 people from the working group, we'll have a quorum. So I'm just going to start with the working group members since there's not a whole lot of folks here. I'll also call on those who aren't in the working group to introduce themselves. In addition to saying, who you are and what you do, I think it'd be really great to say how you're going to use your title and position to advance the goals of this commission. So for instance, I'm Ben Stang. I'm a director at Social Impact Partners. My role here is to convene this group. I'm going to support our charge as a student access working group, and I'm going to take the lead on action steps as we identify them. So I'm going to call on our co-liaisons first to introduce themselves. Jeff, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon again, everybody. Jeff Newton, the superintendent of schools down here in East Lyme. Very excited to be co-chairing or co-liaison with Christina. We're going to be off to a great start and looking forward to our dialogue, starting today and really moving, this work forward. I mean, I'm excited about it specifically because, we've started a number of programs here in East Lyme, really looking to kind of advance and see what can be geared up across the state. And tap into again a lot of the great work that is happening at the state level as well. I know we're going to talk about that document that our commissioner had shared. I read through that and a lot of great things in there. So looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Jeff. And Christina.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Christina Royal. I am the interim president of Connecticut State Community College. I started in August of last year, so while I am an experienced college president, I'm new to the state of Connecticut, so look forward to just getting to know the state and some of the new folks that I'm meeting through this commission work. So this is an area that I'm very interested in because of the nature of working most of my career in community colleges and the connection to that work, both with our public schools and charter agencies as well. And so I'm very excited about this coming into the state and at a time when we're just developing a statewide strategy on how to move this work forward is really exciting to me. I want to be able to use my position, the role that CT State plays in these discussions to be able to help advance it and perhaps also bring some experience and ideas and thoughts from other states that I've worked in. So looking forward to working with everyone.
Thank you, Christina. And oddly enough, we're on a call with a nonprofit called Empower Schools, and you got a shout out from your work with them in Massachusetts. So we know you have
Oh,
a great
wonderful.
background in this.
Awesome.
Yeah. Radenka Marriage, I don't believe is here, so we're going to mark her as not present. Same thing with Henry Martin. I'm going to move on to Alice Pritchard.
Hello, everyone. Alice Pritchard, Executive Director of the Connecticut Technical Education and Career System. I think I was actually just about to go 2 jobs at least back in my introduction. So clearly we're at the end of a long week. Very excited to think about how CTEC 17 high schools and adult programs as well could play a role in this career pathway discussion. I feel like we're on the brink or we're well positioned to have this conversation at the moment because we're unlike other schools perhaps in the state, we're at capacity. We're serving 11,700 high school students this year, and we would love to meet more of the state's demand for workforce and have some constraints. And so we've been having some one-off conversations, with CAPS or with other organizations or other towns, and would just love to bring those things into kind of a more systematic conversation about what is possible and what resources are needed to add on to the work we do. But CTEX is very unique, and I know there's lots of wonderful models of academies and other CTE programs, but what we provide students is 4 years of real technical training that is balanced 50% with their academic work. So I do also want to make sure that the distinction is still there in terms of the trade education that we provide as separate from kind of the elective model that may be in other districts. All of it important, all of it having a role. And so just excited to be part of it.
Thank you so much, Alice. Paul, I apologize. I skipped you because I jumped to Jeff and you're at the top of the order because this is alphabetical by last name. So Paul, could you introduce yourself and share how you're going to support the goals of this commission?
Thank you, Ben. Good afternoon, everyone. My apologies for missing the initial kickoff meeting. I was out of state for a conference. So my name is Paul Costello. I'm the Director of Apprenticeship and Training for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. We're based in New Haven. So we run a 5-year apprenticeship program to train people to be electricians. But I also am president of the Connecticut Building Trades Training Coordinators Association. So we represent collectively all the building trades. So if there's other interest in different trades, we could direct them individuals that path as well. Glad to be working with you. I look forward to the opportunity. We do a lot with the CTEC, great program, as well as trying to promote, opportunities in construction within all our schools and our veteran associations as well. So look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you, Paul. And Charlene, could you round us out?
Certainly. Great to see everyone. Charlene Russell Tucker, Commissioner of Education. And I have to thank Jeff and Christina for saying yes to be co-liaison for this group. I know I left the meeting a little early. So thanks for not volunteering me into that role because I wasn't in the room. No, but seriously, thank you both for doing that. As Commissioner of Education, and you all have a document, there's a lot of work that we've mentioned happening in this space, and we're talking about as a commission to level up or scale, whatever the terminology is, and make sure that we have, at the end of the day, sustainable systems, right, that is going to work for our students. 497,764 students in our public K-12 system, and 18,860 adult learners that we're also making sure that we're supporting. And so the goal here is to be able to make sure that wherever our students are across the state, that they have access and opportunity to make sure that they can be successful and that they have career pathways available to them. Alice and myself last night we were in New London, shaking a lot of hands, but these were students who graduated, who are starting or sign on to work at EB, right? And I mean, Alice, I don't know about you, it was so inspiring, to see them walk across the stage and knowing that this is a future now that in their budding careers, that they walked right out of school and walk right into. And so that is the kind of opportunity, and thank you, Jeff, for the work you're doing, that we want to make sure is available to our students across the state. So that's the goal here from us at the department, to work with everyone to make sure that we can really achieve and attain the goal.
Thank you, Charlene. Thank you. For the sake of time, because we're a little behind, I'm going to ask folks who aren't in the working group to just drop their name, title in the chat. And also, I think it'd be great if you wanted to just drop a few sentences on how you would like to support the goals of this commission. All right, so I'm going to fly through this. This is really just to reiterate here some things that Miguel said last week. These are our working norms as a commission. Again, we're going to get to know each other very well throughout the process. I want to really hit home that everyone's here for a reason. This group is cross-disciplinary by design. And, I recognize that everyone is coming into this with a different working knowledge of career pathways, myself included. What everyone has here is the expertise and power to influence how young people in the state are going to experience education. Our ultimate goal isn't just to write a document that I think anyone can do that, is to create something that's going to be implemented and shaped by you all. So the biggest thing here is that everyone wears a Connecticut hat and we get to consensus on something that we agree to implement after the commission. Any questions on the working norms? You'll notice that we're following a first name rule. I totally recognize I have college presidents and commissioners and superintendents here. I'm following the first name rule. All right. Um, so this is how the commission is organized into 4 different working groups. The first one being Pathways, Design, and Governance. So really setting the stage for the entire commission and the work that will be happening over the next few months. We're in the Career Connected Education Working Group. There's just so much happening here that it's split into 2 pillars. We're the Student Access Group. So really looking into what are the programs needed to enable, facilitate students' entrance into pathways. We're going to talk through this today, but when you look at every model across the country and what people are saying on a national level, the key ingredients to this end up being access to college credits while in high school, credentials of value, so specifically ones that are industry recognized, different school models, work-based learning, career advising. So the way that we're approaching it within these 2 pillars is student access. It's really the programs needed for students' entrance. So that's really the college credits, credentials of value, school models. Student supports is everything that's going to help students navigate complex career decisions. So that's where, teacher credentialing, career advising, those sorts of things will be worked through. I think these 2 working groups are extremely aligned. Riley is supporting the student supports working group. So I will be sure to join all of their working group meetings. So we'll be sure to cross-pollinate what's happening there. And then also when the entire commission meets, everyone's going to be here. Everyone is going to hear what each other is working on. The third pillar or the third working group is work-based learning. So really looking at how employers are influencing career pathways, and the last being statewide systems. So what are the policy recommendations, data that's needed, everything that we need to support expanding career pathways across the state. And here's the overall project schedule. So last week we had our kickoff meeting. We're here prepping for the discovery meeting on June 25th. So every working group right now is in a discovery phase. The next slide I'll talk about, what we want to come out of here with. But at that June 25th meeting, we're still working out, the actual flow of it. But every working group is going to have an opportunity to basically present as it relates to what they're looking at, what is the current landscape, what future do we want to get to, and what are the barriers to getting there. We don't have to have the answers yet. It's really just laying the groundwork so that everyone's on the same page. The next date for this group to really keep in mind is August 13th. That's when we are going to come and share our recommendations based on the discovery. So that meeting will solely be focused on this working group, both pillars of it. We'll present where our heads are at. We'll have a discussion with the entire commission. We'll get feedback from everybody, and that will sort of set the stage for what ends up being in the report itself. Our goal is to have the report finalized by October 20th, share it as a commission before it goes out into the world. And then, the end of the year is really getting ready for legislative session, getting ready for, budget recommendations, all those sorts of things. Any question on the timeline?
Ben, just no question on the timeline. Just a quick question in relation to that kind of final share on August 13th to the full group. Would that be like a written format component that we're providing to them, or is that just how is that coming together? I guess maybe all the groups are sharing like a written component, which then goes into the final.
So to be determined, I mean, it's going to be a 2-hour meeting that we're basically driving. I anticipate, we'll have a presentation showing what we think. I think a written component could make sense. We'll get there.
Okay, just as curious. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Jeff, I do think, ultimately there will be a report that needs to be produced. So whatever is created to be shared on August 13th, there will need to be some sort of visual representation for presentation. And there will also it doesn't need to be done by August 13th, but it will need to be translated into a report that will be, the findings of this group in particular.
Makes sense. Got it.
Great. That was a good question, Jeff. Anyone else? Okay. So right now we're in the discovery phase. Like I said, just looking at those first three arrows, that's where we are today. So we don't have to come out in the next half hour answering all this stuff, but we want to know where to go to find the answers. And we need to have our guiding, stars of what we want to answer. So as it relates to student access in career pathways, what is the current state? Ajit and Charlene are going to set the conversation with that, and then I think everyone has something to add. The future state, I mean, this is an open discussion. Everyone should be talking about this, but what does the ideal vision look like for students in Connecticut? And then barriers, what are the impediments to achieving that vision today? That's solutions arrow, that is in August, and then everything else is later down the line. So we're really just focusing on these three arrows today. And then here are the overarching questions to guide our discussion. What I can do is after I stop sharing screen, I'll copy and paste this in the chat just so we have it. And we're not tied to this at all. But so for current state, what do pathways and associated outcomes look like in Connecticut today? Ultimately, we're doing a landscape analysis of what exists today, where they are, any data that we can gather together. We'd want to highlight bright spots and pockets of excellence of what's working in our state, what we would love to see scale, and outcomes analysis. And also state benchmarking. So how does this compare to other states? Plenty of resources that we can use to get this sort of data. Future state, so best practice scan, what are states around the country doing? What are national experts saying? But, we're not trying to just copy what other people are doing. We want to do something that works for Connecticut. And this is where you all really come in. And what's our big audacious goal as a working group that we can all get behind? And then barriers. So issues by stakeholder. I'm sure all of you face many barriers in your day-to-day work. We want to hear about that. They can be big or small. We want to understand the political and policy barriers to achieving that future state that we want, and also the systematic barriers. So I'm going to pull my screen down. I will drop these in the chat. Stop share. The Department of Education was nice enough to send a document that really gets the conversation going on the discovery process. We could start with them. I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to give the floor to Jeff and Christina to facilitate the rest of the discussion.
Did you want to start, Christine, or do you want me to?
Sure, I'll jump in because this actually really helps me as well. I'd really like to understand a little bit about what the existing landscape looks like. And because number one, I don't want us to reinvent the wheel. It'll be a good opportunity to get a sense of what exists today, what are some good things that are happening that we want to acknowledge or perhaps even amplify or replicate on a larger scale. And, what are some of the areas where we have gaps or things that are substantially missing. But if we focus before we get to a future state, let's talk a little bit about the current state. So what does exist?
Yeah, and I think that's a great segue into, again, our focus as the student access group, the charge, that we're here to bring forward. So I guess we'll turn it over to our commissioner and hear about that document that was shared and which is extremely helpful.
Thank you, Jeffrey and Christina, and you both have teed this up very well. I'm going to also have Ajit to be ready. But it was so important for us, and I think we've mentioned it here, and you said it quite well, that it's so important that we think about scaling or level up or looking for where gaps are. I thought it was really important for us to all kind of level set for us, kind of where are we on the, I'm going to say the high school side of things, with the data we have. We certainly have partnerships with higher ed and CT State, others here, the privates, and we're in that space as well. But just wanted to share almost also from a data perspective, but the initiatives, the partnerships, and the resources to inform kind of where we are at this point. So that was the document. I'm not expecting that everyone looked at it from cover to cover. So this really will be high level that we've shared. And we organized the document by looking at the executive order and the three pillars, the pillars that were there, and also addressing policy, funding, data, and accountability throughout. So at a really very high level, I'll just ask Ajit to jump in as we take a look at this. First piece being that we had was pathway design. And Ajit, is there any other context setting before I jump into the document itself?
No, I think it's more like I think there's a redefinition of what the comprehensive high school experience is about. I guess that's, to me, would be the sort of big picture, because I think in the old days maybe it was viewed as this is a tech school thing, or this is only certain high schools, and I think we're well past that point, and I think Jeff in East Lyme is a perfect example of what that future is. But that would be the sort of broad context, Commissioner, that I would throw out.
Right. It's also very important as well that we just get that good frame around what is happening. And I think that helps us, right, as we talk about discovery. So that was really the point of putting something in front of you with links. I saw, Alice, do you have a copy of it? I know we didn't put it up on the screen.
I just sent it to Alice. It's also
Okay.
in the meeting invite.
Thank
Okay,
you.
perfect.
Sorry, I wasn't sure where it was.
No,
I was
awesome.
searching frantically.
Perfect, thank you. Hidden in plain sight for you there. So Ajit, why don't we can walk through. The first we looked at was the pathway design and delivery. Develop statewide definitions, standards, design principles, high quality pathways, and then we started to say kind of what is in that space. So Ajit?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it. So yeah, I think one of obviously historically the funding that has existed in the K-12 space and the high school space is the Perkins funding, the Carl D. Perkins grant, and that has had many iterations of reauthorization. And what that page 2 shows you is that $10 million that essentially goes to the school districts. And you could see we took the most recent year to show you where the school districts are saying that they're allocating their resources in terms of the career clusters where the funding is going. And you'll see about 55% is going to, of that 10 million is going to manufacturing, health sciences, IT, or STEM. So again, that's an existing source. Often the Perkins program runs like a sort of a shell within a high school. But I think what we're talking about here is sort of much bigger than Perkins, right? It's Perkins is part of it, but I think we're talking about essentially reimagining that core high school program so that it's oriented to give kids options. And of course, Perkins is a good place to start. We also wanted to mention that we've done a lot of work around career and technical student organizations and growing those, because those are a neat avenue for folks, for students to get some of those experiences around leadership and hands-on learning and connections with business industry, et cetera. And two of our newest, I just want to do a call out of this student organizations, are Ed Rising, which is about really school to teacher sort of pipeline, if you will. So generating interest in middle school and high school for students to see education, teaching as a career, because we do have lots of shortages in our educator workforce. And the other new one that came on was ProStart, which is out of the National Restaurant Association. So those are student-led organizations. Again, that's a part of the Perkins program. I also called attention in the data side and accountability and policy side to several things that exist in the high school space. We have law around what is a challenging curriculum policy that every district is expected to have that really encourages placement in advanced coursework. We have put out from the state level guidance on what that should be. And that talks about some key principles like starting in middle school. If we're talking about having students think about such pathways and because advanced courses doesn't just mean AP, right? It can mean college level coursework, and college doesn't just mean four-year degrees either. It can be two-year degrees. Again, we have our president here from CT State, which is a fantastic system we have in Connecticut with free tuition. We drum that up extensively in our world. So the whole idea of rigorous coursework is so much broader than just four-year degrees. And so starting in middle school is important, partnering with families, because families don't really see, especially first generation college goers, don't really realize all these different options that even might be available in the school. So we're pushing on the demand side of it as well as the supply side, because I think you got to push on the supply side, invest in higher ed and K-12, but you also got to push on the demand side, because if parents and students don't see themselves in those offerings, the demand is not going to be there. So I think you got to push sort of both sides and reduce barriers to access, that students need to meet particular thresholds of test scores or whatever, whatever the case may be, or just like, cultural barriers that might exist. So I think that's something we talk about.
Ajit, can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I am curious about, how does a middle or, a high school student understand the range of options and what those pathways are?
It's a good question. It again, this gets onto the advising side of, I guess, the other group that we have in the space. The predominant way would be, and Jeff, you should jump in here from your school perspective, district perspective. Predominantly, you're talking school counselors who do a lot of this advising work. It could be teachers, just classroom teachers suggesting the students, but also other students, because when and this is really what happens, and when students talk and see other students and what they have pursued, that kind of helps the students see that, oh yeah, I can do that. East Haven, for one, did like this big recruitment fair that they do, where they had students actually on panels talking about what sort of advanced courses they're doing and how that's working for them, and having parents come and listen to other students. And it's that kind of stuff that actually changes habits and mindsets. But Jeff, I'll invite you here.
Yeah, counselors is really the first one that comes to my mind. But in addition, that's something we try to do, in East Lyme is tap into some other avenues, individuals that are really focused on this work. Counselors have a broad job in the things that they do, but to try and have some sort of a coordinator working around these efforts to really hone in, be pushing out, through social media, the opportunities where kids can say, "Hey, I didn't know that existed." So we've had a pathways coordinator who is an assistant principal, but part of his role as assistant principal, part-time assistant principal, is to be engaging this pathways work with students. I know in other districts, next door to me, Waterford, they use a CIL, a curriculum instructional leader, who doesn't teach two classes and does and focuses on this this work. So engagement of that kind is what's been helping us.
So,
Jeff, you gave two perfect examples of folks' job descriptions changing.
Yeah.
It's not like you hired new people. You took away some things, or you redesigned what they were doing to now do something different. I think that's kind of the key here too.
Exactly, because we know we can't spend more money, sort of things. We're trying to be creative.
Right.
But it immediately, Christina, and I'm thinking where you're going is, so is there something that we can do to standardize or help make sure that those opportunities are there? And as folks have different constructs in which they operate. So those are the things I think we will unearth at some point in time when we start thinking about barriers or how do we enhance. So there are things that we can do on that end. We meet with our organization for school counselors, and these are the kinds of information that we're constantly sharing with them, so that as they're working with students, that they're able to have the information available to them that they can share.
Yeah, and Charlene, I'm curious, if we feel like there is consistency across the state. I've used this phrase a lot in higher education about the unfortunate reality that zip code determines destiny, and so I'm thinking about equity across our state, and do we feel like people have an equitable opportunity of understanding what all the potential pathways are regardless of what school district they're in? Or do we feel that, there's pockets of success happening in certain regions or parts of state, whether it's driven by superintendent priority or it's, some special grant or some more marketing and intensive activity there or more professional development. Those are just some things that I'm thinking about us, as we think about the current state and understanding that.
Christina,
We
I think
have,
that's exactly. Oops, sorry, Ajit,
go ahead, Jeff. No, please.
No, I just was going to chime in on that because I think that's exactly it. We have pockets of things occurring, around the state where, in my mind, I was envisioning trying to engage all opportunities, for all kids, sort of thing. So those pockets turn into more, standard practice, I guess, all across districts.
So we have this contact that we required from each district, something called a post-secondary readiness lead. We also have a workforce development contact that we're asking for in cases where there might be employer connections that don't necessarily involve college. And so from our perspective, we're trying to create a point of contact, and those lists, the post-secondary readiness lead is available on our website as well, that we can point to the SIP folks. You can, I think it's in our write-up, but we can also point you to that.
So I don't know how much time we have. I'm here for this conversation, so I want to move us along. Is the credentialing and quality piece?
Yeah, the credentialing and quality is all about dual credit, our dual credit expansion work. So, Commissioner, do you want me to launch into it?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So this is probably the area where we've invested the most effort. Because often, like I said in the beginning, dual credit isn't just about four-year degree things, but also career-oriented coursework, and really sets up our students well. We have a post-secondary success work group that brings together all the players, many of whom sit around the commission. We gave grants to the IHEs, about 4.9 million to the IHEs, and this was through ARPA funding, so the COVID relief funding. We also gave about 3.8 to the school districts. I know Jeff used that in East Lyme to build their EMT certification and lab and so on. So that's been there's multiple examples like that across the state. We have, as part of our funding, we have asked the districts the IHEs to become NACEP accredited so that the coursework that we provide has quality. So we actually have a contract with NACEP to support that work with our IHEs and our districts. So that's been going on for the last 3-4 years. We're finalizing this model agreement so that, a district that wants to partner with an IHE doesn't have to start from scratch. It's template based. We have set up a IRC registry, and there's a link to that on bottom of page 6. Where we're identifying that list of credentials that SDE is actually going to be collecting information on those credentials starting this year for 25-26. In the future, we'll be establishing, and that work is happening with the Grace at OWS and others, not necessarily through my office at SDE, but other offices are doing that work to establish sort of credentials of value, and also the whole idea of stackability, so that what's kind of the path in those credentials. We actually do an annual mailing to students, and this past year we did about over 150,000 pieces of mail went out to students, and all students in grades 8 through 11, encouraging this post-secondary advanced coursework exploration. So we're pushing on the demand side, if you will, and there's new legislation that's passed around dual credit. There's also funding that's passed, $6 million that's available every year that comes to the department, that the department is now working to get out on an annual basis as a fee waiver for students from high need backgrounds to take more dual credit courses. So that's something that we'll be getting out there. And we get data from the higher education institutions, that real data of students doing dual credit that we then match back to our K-12 data. And we've included some of those data measures. We also partner with OHE to get FAFSA data. Again, this is at a kid level. We know who's completed the FAFSA, who hasn't, because even to get free, used to be called PAC, but now it's free tuition at our community college, free tuition program, you still need to have the FAFSA done. You can't get free tuition because it's a last dollar program. So we are pushing hard on FAFSA completion, and we report that publicly. The school districts actually get kid level data. They know which kid has completed the FAFSA and who hasn't in 12th grade. So they can actually contact the family, encourage, support that FAFSA completion. And CT State, Steve McDowell has been excellent working with us. Christina, you should know that too. He's excellent, and Jan Keeney on the data side has been an excellent partner as well. We are on the accountability for school districts. We're actually in discussions. There's new legislation on this that empowers the State Department to actually put out Public Act 26-139 to revamp our state accountability model to really increase the weight we assign to dual credit and so on, and lower the weight on SAT, because that is really going to send the message to the school districts in terms of what's important in terms of high school. Don't go chasing SAT scores. It's fine. I mean, yeah, you should have basic math and reading skills, but it's more important for us that students earn credentials of value, students earn college credit. So we're going to weight the system a little differently. So that's the whole credentialing and quality piece. And lastly, on the work-based learning and employer engagement piece, again, we share sort of the federal definition that's in place. That's going to be part of our state plan that goes to the feds as well around CTE state plan. There are school districts have lots of partnerships with business and industry, often leveraging the regional sector partnerships that are through OWS. We have models for unpaid experiential learning. And I think this is an area definitely where more work needs to happen to sort of make this kind of a default experience. On the data side, we actually have robust data in the state. We know where our high school graduates are going in terms of work within Connecticut. We know what they're earning. This year, Paul, you'd be happy to know that DOL actually through DataLink CT provided us with a flag on who is in the registered apprenticeship program. And we actually were able to show that those in registered apprenticeship pathways who are not in college are actually earning more than those who are not, doing anything. And then, college definitely helps because it gets you to more advanced sort of occupation, but those in an apprenticeship program, their earnings are not to be shirked at. It's pretty solid. So we were able to actually show that, especially in the industries of construction, manufacturing, to a lesser extent in retail, but definitely construction, manufacturing, some solid average earnings, long-term earnings.
Yeah,
And I see, yeah, and I see Ben's hand, but I wanted to pause because I believe for us, as we're thinking about pathways and work, that we want students to be able to get into high wage, opportunities. And we have the data, which is what Ajit is shown to show. I mean, and it's by school district, so you can know that. You can know if those graduates 7 years later, where are they and what are they earning? I don't think any of us will be satisfied that at that 10 years whatever later that you're at a wage that's not family sustaining, right? So I want us to continue to keep that in mind, that it's not a check a box and make that connection. It's about that pathway that leads there, and I think that's really important for us to keep in mind as well.
I had a question. Based on all the data that we do have, that sounds very robust. And to Charlene's point of, showing that a pathway should be leading to a family sustaining job, and just to stay on track with something we want to come out of this meeting with from the landscape analysis of bright spots. Do we think that the data exists to start identifying some of those bright spots throughout the state? Like I think anecdotally, we all know some really great programs, but from a data perspective, are we able to pull and say this district is doing some really great things based on dual enrollment, based on outcomes?
Good question. Not yet. Dual enrollment expansion is something that we pushed for in 21-22 with the COVID relief funds. And so as you can see in the numbers, we have grown dramatically in the last 2 years, and those students haven't yet hit the workforce. Many of them might be in post-secondary. So those measures tend to be more lagging. The apprentice data obviously is more even that it takes a little bit to start seeing that bigger earnings, but those questions are knowable, Ben. I think the commissioner talked about EB folks getting into those into EB directly, but we don't know who those students are, right? So Jeff in East Lyme has this EMT program. They have a collaborative with Waterford on automotive training, but we don't know which are the students yet earning the IRCs to sort of track long term yet, right? So I think we know who's taking the dual credit courses, but they're recent and they haven't yet graduated and like made it out in large numbers. So I'm hoping the evidence is there, and this is why you tend to lean on existing research. But I know Paul wanted to get in a little while ago, and Paul, you unmuted there.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, I was just gonna, say exactly what you were saying, where the apprenticeship, we do see the benefits, and it's usually around 3 to 4 years is where they start really earning their wages as well as their benefits all the way through. And the other thing too is most of our programs all receive college credits in addition to completing the apprenticeship, and very few actually take advantage of that. So if there's a way we could continue more partnerships with some of our community colleges to really expand on it and take full advantage of the benefits that are being afforded to them.
Is that at no cost from your side?
It is. It is on our end. So I can speak on behalf of the IBW. Our program, they receive up to about 52 college credits. And obviously it's going to depend on, what their major is going to be. Where I see some of our students and our apprentices continuing to be more for construction management, working with like Central and some of the other colleges as well. Yeah, so it's a great resource, and unfortunately very few take advantage of it.
So thank you, Paul. Ben, I was just going to go back before we go to Alice, though, your question. And I know Ajit talked kind of the long term in terms of what we'll see. However, if you're just looking at the dual enrollment and what's happening there, we can and have the data where you can see what's happening by district, right? And you can see where the partnerships are occurring. Is it CT State? Is it, UConn? So that information you can see at that level. And Ajit, I believe that's also available based on the student demographic, like that we have that information as well. That's how we know that we had such a dramatic increase for student population that's usually farthest from opportunity. And so we were really pleased to see the growth there in dual enrollment programming. So we do have that information is really publicly available as a part of the data, the EdSite data portal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know Alice, you had.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I guess I have another question for Ajit. Just again, thinking about what does the data tell us, and Ajit, I really should know this by now, year and a half in, but I'm curious if in the data for CTEX in the longer term, you can see the kind of industry differentiation. So you could see that, again, students going into the construction trades are possibly doing better than the like retail, as you suggested, or even health tech and some of the others. So I'm curious if the data can be broken that way, but also if the data can be broken, again, back to zip code. So if you can connect whether or not a CTEX education helped the kids from Hartford as much or more than the kid from Waterbury. I'm just picking towns now. So anyway, I guess I'm curious about that. Other thing that I would caution, not just waving the CTEX flag the whole time, but what is interesting about what EB was doing last night, they hired 309 students. They hired probably 80 of them from CTEX. So a lot of those kids, 80 to 100 came from CTEX, but the other 200 came from a program that was a much lighter touch than the 3.5 years that our students would have. And they were all walking into the same job. So as much as I'm touting like the 3.5 years that we do at CTEX, and maybe those students will have longer staying power at EB, and there might be some other things, that would say we need to do more of what CTEX does. But there's an employer who is taking kids who have a semester potentially or more and bringing them into the same job as somebody who's had 3.5 years. So, again, I think we may like have all this rigor and all this stuff, and the employer may still hire 2 kids from completely different trajectories for the same job. So I just worry about us over manufacturing kind of the systems that we're talking about, when on the other end, the employer's just going to pick them up because they're so desperate to pick them up with even the most basic of skills. So just want to make sure we don't make our career pathways full of mud, but full of water and a stream, and have people moving through them, kind of thing. Sorry, long dive.
I think no, and I think it moves us to. I know Ben dropped the other question in here, and Ben, I don't know how we're doing for time on getting to that, but I think Alice, you make a good point about. We were talking today. I was talking to Ajit about what we saw last time, which was really great. But what's the stay in power in here? I mean, learning some more I think is helpful, because then you can backtrack and say these are the things that we need to make sure we're doing in our CTECs or in our comprehensive high schools. There's a lot still to learn in that space, but that's great. I'm going to turn it back to our co-liaisons or facilitators here, but wanted to just put that in the space, and hopefully we can continue to have these conversations moving forward, but at least we have a base of understanding from which to work.
And just one other thought I wanted to add to that, quick. When you go into EdSite and you look at those dual credit, the variations between districts is amazing. I was just going through and looking, like Glastonbury, for instance, has over 800. We're around 400. So I don't know that, as part of our charge, trying to balance more of that out, more opportunities for those districts that have those lower numbers. Then we have looks like 5 or 6 minutes left. We want to wrap. How do we want to handle our last few? We want to wrap up or kind of plan our next. I think on the agenda was Christina, we were supposed to kind of plan our next meeting.
Next steps. I would like if we could just take 2 minutes. I know that there's probably a very long list of barriers that we'll ultimately have to contend with, but if there's, top 3 that people feel that might be the biggest, most complex barriers that we'll be facing, what are those? Alice?
I would just offer that I think one of the challenges we have in Connecticut, which might not be the same elsewhere, is that we're going to do this at least 169, if not 359 ways and times. And so we're all trying to do the same thing with limited resources. And there's no cohesive plan that says this is where this starts and this stops and this takes over. And so I think that's a particular barrier, is that we don't have a plan that gives everybody a role, but doesn't have everybody trying to do everything with the limited resources that we each have.
Okay, that's a great one. Any other 1 or 2 that we want to get on the record, even if we don't have time to discuss it in great detail today?
I don't know if it's necessarily a barrier, maybe pertaining to, the middle school level. We talk a lot about the high school level, but, our outreach trying to get down into those middle school years, grades 7 and 8, specifically, how do we do more of that? That's one of the things we're working on, in my district here, and trying to, again, collaborate with other districts and shared services. How are we doing it at that middle school level to open up those opportunities and experiences and exploratory interests at that level to gear them then and get kids ready for high school?
Okay. All right.
I'd probably add that people come to, because of the 169 schools or whatever, we have about 230 high schools in the state. Right. When in communities, parents' perspective of what they want for their kid in high school is often driven by what they experienced, not necessarily what their kids need in today's world. Students who need career-connected learning, and not just those going for masters and PhDs and whatever, or even bachelors, exist in every school district in the state. Even in Darien and Avon, there are kids who may benefit from something that that high school may not be offering currently. And I think that culture shift is a population culture shift that we need. To say that, working in manufacturing is not a bad thing. It's not like, so I think that culture of like if you don't go to college, you're a failure. That's not just often the schools get blamed for that perspective, but that didn't start in school. That's a community-wide sort of perspective that I think we need to sort of educate the broad community about what futures can be like and what success can look like.
Well
Great.
said, Ajit.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, Ben, do we want to close out?
I think it'd be great if we could walk out of here. So this is our only scheduled meeting until the 25th. We obviously have more to talk about, and we want you all to react to things before that meeting on the 25th. So I personally think we do need to meet again, but I want you all as the working group and commission members to share your thoughts on how often you'd like to meet, what makes sense, and how to make the best use of these meetings. We could have a standing meeting Fridays at 3. I know everyone has very busy schedules. We could do a doodle poll, continue to do a doodle poll to schedule these. I did my best to work around everyone. Some people still didn't show up. What works for you all?
I would agree that seems like we need more. Feels like we just started to kind of scratch at this, and August 13th is not that far away. I'm not sure that Friday at 3 is ideal, but I don't think there is an ideal. I mean, I think it will be really challenging, Ben, on short notice to cram into schedules. But so maybe the doodle poll is expected. And again, I think, we'll all have to just trust that if we can't be here, that the conversation is still continuing in a good way. So, but
Yeah. I would suggest the doodle poll as well, just to kind of throw it out there and we see what works. I agree that more conversation, there's a lot to unpack, let's put it that way, to determine, kind of what's the next step. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, so I think we should do a doodle poll. The next meeting should be focused on the future state and barriers. I think what we can do coming into that meeting is I can do some work on the current landscape, put it in slide form. It'll, obviously include all the great stuff that CSDE included, but I can also do a national scan, things that are happening around the country, some benchmarking comparing us to other states. And what I will try to do is get that to all of you before that first meeting, just so we're in good shape on the current state and we all have an agreement on that. And then we can really start talking through, looking at what other people are doing and thinking about what we want to see in our state, the future state barriers to getting there. I think ideally we would meet 2 more times before the 25th. If that's okay.
I might also suggest that even if we had a half-hour meeting to be able to just focus on the future state, that that will lead us into, bridging what the barriers are from the current to the future. But if we could have a half-hour concentrated meeting where everybody could commit and we dive into building what our future state is, I think we've got some places to go in future meetings if not everybody is able to attend.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
great.
would
That's
also
a good idea.
suggest, Ben, that I think if what we're really talking about is the future state, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on the current until we know it aligns with where we want to go. Because you could spend a whole lot of time talking about all the good things that Connecticut thinks it does, but if it doesn't lead us, if it's not a small example of where we're trying to get to, it's just a directory. And
Yeah.
we've all created directories over time. They're not that useful. So I think that I would agree, Christine. I think that sounds like a great idea to have the next meeting be focused on, maybe it should be 45 minutes, maybe, but yeah, I think that sounds
Yeah.
good.
Agreed.
Okay. I think that's great. So I'll follow up with people. Christina and Jeff, you may not be aware, but I already have times in the future that work for you that I'm going to send for a doodle poll to folks so we can get at least 45 minutes on the calendar to really focus on the future state. So I'll send that out shortly. We'll also be sending out meeting minutes. This is also going to be posted to the OWS website. I think we're good to adjourn, everybody.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you,
Outstanding.
everyone, for your
Thank
engagement.
you.
Thank you.